Gundam.tk presents Gundam Astray, Red Frame. Hey, what's up everybody, it's Robert1D4 from Gundam.tk, and I'm here continuing my look at the Master Grade Red Frame Astray. This time I'll be taking a look at the tactical arms itself, and don't forget to check out parts 1, 2, and 3 to see the deboxing and all the parts and details. Now, when I first saw my pictures of the Master Grade Red Frame, I said, why do they include the tactical arms? And I asked on the webpage, and somebody was kind enough to answer, and they said that Low used it in the manga. Which, after I read it, I realized, oh, he did use it, because at first I was saying, well, why do we need just a blue frame copy slapped onto the red frame? I mean, it's cool and all, but it doesn't seem to serve any purpose for story. So since I haven't read Versus Astray, I don't know if he uses it regularly, but the fact he did use it in the manga makes it all of a sudden worth having now for me. So where did he use it, you say? Well, it's in the third volume of the first Seed Astray, and basically he's fighting Gold Frame Amatsu, who I thought was piloted by a girl, but it turns out it's a guy. Well, anyway, that's sort of creepy. But anyway, as they're going through, the Amatsu does a great job against him, and in this incredibly cool scene, he breaks the Gabura Strait. And so after that, Low is, well, of course, heartbroken, and he doesn't know what he's going to end up doing. So then the Amatsu is just wailing on him, and everybody's worried, including Kisato, who heads out in a buku along with George Glenn, is it? Anyway, the first coordinator. And then, as Amatsu's getting ready to destroy him, all of a sudden, Guy, his enemy/friend, shows up in the blue frame, and he gives him the tactical arms that apparently Low built for him. Now that probably takes place in R, which I haven't quite read, and as he tosses him the tactical arms through space, there's Low with what's probably supposed to be blue looking all cool. And as they fight, he goes on and he smashes with the gold frame, and then the final blow, he slices through him before Guy ends up cleaning up all the garbage afterwards. So all of a sudden, just based on reading this, I'm actually quite happy to have the tactical arms, but I wonder, should it not be blue to sort of match this manga's theme? So when you build the tactical arms, you build it in sword form first, and it is an absolute beast. I'll give you a size comparison here. So here it is next to the Master Grade Red Frame itself, and even without the handle with the blaster down at the bottom, you still have an idea of how massive this sword actually is. And the only model I have built that this doesn't look ridiculous next to is the 1/60th Exia. So here it is next to the 1/60th Exia, which gives you an idea of how big it is, and it doesn't really look out of place if it was in his hands. When you're building the tactical arms, you'll notice that there are a lot of plates left over, and that's because these plates were used in blue frame, and it says on here Astray second on the writing. So anyway, it looks like you might be able to actually rebuild the blue frame's tactical arms with these parts, so that's something I might think about doing a little bit later. So for the sword itself, well, once you put it together, you can change the handle down here, which this is a blaster of some sort. Then it does have these white parts that come up, and you'll use that in the later transformations. And otherwise, everything is fairly stable here, especially the fact that they do have an attachment here that keeps the blades firmly in place, which is always good to see. And these parts here can move in and out, and they do not seem to lock into place, but they also don't seem to want to fall out either. So it seems pretty solid overall. Now, what about posing? Well, of course they're going to give you an action base, but you can do the, hey, I have a giant sword in my hand, in addition to the small sword I have in my other hand pose. And I'll show you why they let you do that. When you look around here, you're actually able to put Low's hands into here. As well, you're able to lock them around here, and this is a different mechanism than on blue frame, so you're not going to be able to pull off quite the same handles, and this really does look like more of a blaster handle, unless he wants to use this in sword form. And though it's awkward, you actually can have him put it over his shoulder, sort of cloud strife style. If you want to mount it on his back, they actually recommend that you take this plate off of the back, attach this to the sword, and then you can put the whole thing back on. So you simply attach the plate on here, and once you get the legs spun backwards, you actually don't have as many weight issues as I expected with the sword slapped to the back. And actually this is sort of a pretty cool effect overall, and something that I'll probably replicate when it's on my shelf. But most other poses, including him holding the sword, are going to require the use of this action base. And I thought it was the same as a regular action base, but they actually give you a special attachment here, which comes on the red frame plates, not on the actual action base plates with just a longer handle here, or a longer extender that you can attach to the sword down here at the end. So what I've done here is I've just attached the action base onto the sword itself, so when you bring it around you can cover up most of the fact that it's being held on, and then just have Lo come in there and grab it from beside, and have a pretty cool looking pose as well. Yes, this really is a huge sword, and if you put the red frame itself on an action base, although you'd probably want to have a red one like Char's to match the color scheme, you can have him do some pretty cool poses with this, either behind his back or slashing forward like this. And I have to say that depending on how well you hide the action base, really there's quite a few things that you can do with this that's going to end up making it look really good. So I think if you bought this kit, you're only hampered by your imagination and what you can do with this thing in sword form. Even though I'm focused on the sword form because I saw it in the manga, you can make the arrow form, etc., which I'm assuming has showed up in Versus Astray somewhere. When you're transforming it into bow mode, you do have some plug-and-play action, so you're going to take off the main part of the blade, and then transform it, and then move everything into position, and then plug it back in for this kind of effect. So here's a look at the completed arrow form, and basically what I did with the front is you take it off, spin it, and then just move everything around here, and I called these yellow parts before beam sabers incorrectly, and they're actually some sort of, I don't know, arrow of doom? Not death, I guess, because Lo doesn't kill. But anyway, overall the arrow does look sort of cool, and you have a mount mechanism. You're supposed to be able to put the hands here on the inside where there's an attachment and at the back of the blaster. So with the action base attached, here we have the red frame, and I haven't locked the hands into place, although you have no problems getting them into position because of how good his upper body mobility is, especially with the arms. And yeah, the effect is, well, not too bad anyway, but probably not something that I'm going to show off too often anyway. After that, it's just a combination of moving everything around, and here I've put it into its V form, where you can just slap this onto the back for some sort of a cool backpack effect. I can't really say I'm too crazy about this V form, and you are going to have to be careful with the legs, because you really have to pull them back to get the weight evenly distributed, so he doesn't want to topple backwards. Getting it into delta form is a little bit finicky, but you basically bring up these black parts from V form and then just bend up these parts to make the top of the triangle here, and you're going to have to get everything in just the right position because there's no real way to lock it into place, although the parts down here, once you keep them there, they don't really want to move, but there's no way to actually attach these things together here at the top. Here is delta form as it appears on the cover of the box. So if it appears on the cover of the box, maybe this could be one of its more official forms, we could say. But anyway, I do like this better than the V form, although I didn't quite notice from the original promo shots just how high this delta form really towers over the back. But it does give you an overall pretty cool impression, I think. When you're putting him into flight mode, you're actually going to take this part in the back and bend it forward, and then you'll have to get things like the action base, everything lined up just right. Here's a look at the tactical arms in flight mode, which is really not all that different from the bow and arrow itself, but it really does look awkward here the way it attaches onto the back, although I have to say that they did give you a solid connection here, so no problem so far with it wanting to fall off. In flight mode, you can actually use the 1/44th action base to hold up the tactical arms, which in turn will hold Lo up in the air, and you can put the legs on the ground if you want to have all sorts of cool poses. And while I think this one looks okay, it's not as bad as I expected, but it's certainly nothing as cool looking as Ale Strike or Force Impulse or things like that. It's just got way too much length going on, and you can sort of cover that up with the action base effect. But I don't think this is, again, something that I'm going to be replicating too often. Something else here is that you can detach this pistol from the back, and it's actually called the Beam Torch, and I don't really know if that's supposed to be a weapon or something that he uses for his work in the Junk Guild, but it's not a very cool looking weapon overall. Yeah, I've seen worse Gundam weapons, but that's pretty much on the list now. They don't give you directions on how to make this into work mode, so I just totally jury-rigged this with no real idea what I'm doing. But anyway, the idea of the work claw is a little bit cool in principle as part of the Junk Guild idea, but again, am I ever actually going to show it off like this? And then again, am I even doing it right? I don't know. They should give you directions if they want to make this into an official mode, even though it is written down in the manual anyway. Lots to talk about with this tactical arm, so stay tuned for one more part where I'm going to give you my final impressions of the whole model itself. Thanks for watching, everybody. I guess I'll see you and that ridiculously oversized sword of yours in the 14th Gundam fight.